a Broadway musical with music, lyrics, and book written by the Puerto Rican genius Lin-Manuel Miranda. The Hamilton musical tells the story of the American founding father Alexander Hamilton, which Lin-Manuel got inspired by the biography written by Ron Chernow. The show's music draws heavily from hip-hop as well as R&B, soul, and traditional style show tunes. The show also casts Black actors as the founding fathers and other historical figures. Throughout these modern storytelling methods, Hamilton has been described as America then told by America now. But in this video, we want to give the space to talk about those things that hasn't been talked much from this amazing staging. I am talking about the contemplation of death and scene, the masterly work of the Schuyler sisters, and how Lin-Manuel thought of his actors to enhance their talent in the different characters they played. But first, let's summarize the plot of the story told of this great musical as shortly as possible.
For the first time I'm thinking past tomorrow, and I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot.
The orphan Alexander Hamilton leaves his home on the Caribbean. After arriving to New York in 1776, Hamilton meets Aaron Burr, John Lawrence, Lafayette, and Hercules, and impresses them with his skills. They affirm their revolutionary goals to each other. Meanwhile, the wealthy Schuyler sisters, Angelica, Eliza, and Peggy, go into town seeking out for potential husbands. King George III then insists on his authority. During the New York and New Jersey campaign, Hamilton accepts a position as George Washington's right-hand man. Later on, Eliza Schuyler falls hopelessly in love with Alexander, who reciprocates her feelings, which at the end marry each other, as Angelica suppresses her feelings for the sake of their happiness at the wedding. After the wedding, Burr congratulates Hamilton on his position as the right-hand man to Washington. Burr reflects on Hamilton's swift rise while considering his own career more cautiously. As conditions worsen for the Continental Army, Hamilton aids Lawrence in a duel against Charles Lee, who insulted Washington. Hamilton ends up being suspended by Washington over the duel and is sent home. Eliza reveals that she is pregnant with her first child and asks Hamilton to slow down, to take in what has happened in their lives.
I'm taking this horse by the reins, making red coats weather with bloodstains.
After Lafayette convinces France to get involved on the colonist side, he urges Washington to call Hamilton back to help plan the final siege of Yorktown. Washington agrees but explains to Hamilton that he should be careful with his actions because whatever he does will be known for ages to come because history has its eyes on you. Soon after the victory at Yorktown, Hamilton's son Philip is born, while Burr has a daughter. Hamilton receives the news that his friend Lawrence has been killed and throws himself into work. He co-authors the Federalist Papers, and it is selected as Secretary of the Treasury by newly elected President Washington, but Eliza begs Hamilton to stay. Thomas Jefferson returns to America from being the U.S. ambassador to France, and Hamilton debates the latter's financial proposal at a cabinet meeting. Eliza and her family travels upstate during the summer, while Hamilton stays home to work on the compromise. Hamilton begins an affair with Maria Reynolds, making him vulnerable to her husband's blackmail. Hamilton, Jefferson, and James Madison create the compromise over a private dinner, exchanging Hamilton's financial plan for placing the country's permanent capital on the Potomac River. Burr is jealous of Hamilton and wishes he had similar power, so he switches political parties and defeats Philip Schuyler, making Hamilton now his rival. In the wake of this, Jefferson, Madison, and Burr decide to join forces to find a way to discredit Hamilton in Washington's eyes. Washington decides to retire from the presidency, and Hamilton assists in writing a farewell address. John Adams becomes the second president and fires Hamilton.
Sit down, John, you fat mother!
In the face of accusations of speculation of government funds by Jefferson, Madison, and Burr, and out of fear that his affair with Maria Reynolds will be used against him in his political career, Hamilton chooses to publish his affair in the Reynolds pamphlet, damaging his relationship with Eliza. Eliza, fully heartbroken, burns all the letters from Hamilton, trying to erase herself from history's narrative. Philip, instructed by Hamilton, challenges George Eaker to a duel and dies, causing Alexander and Eliza to come back together. Hamilton's endorsement of Jefferson in the presidential election results in a further conflict between Hamilton and Burr. Then, Burr challenges Hamilton to a duel via an exchange of letters. During the duel, both Burr and Hamilton fire at each other, with Hamilton intentionally missing his shot. Hamilton dies as a result. Burr laments that even though he survived, he is cursed to be remembered as the villain who killed Hamilton. The musical closes with a reflection on historical memory, showing how Eliza kept Hamilton's legacy alive. Before we continue, if you want to see more reviews, make sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook for our latest news and updates. And make sure to comment down below what movie, musical, or even book I should review next. Now let's start talking about something that hasn't been seen as much before. This is the use of Black actors portraying historical white figures, such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Lafayette, Mulligan, and Burr. Like Manuel said, Black people are the future of this country, within more reason to tell the story this way. Also, is the race better known for the genre of hip-hop, which is the biggest repertory of this musical. Secondly, we can't let the beautiful and emotive work of Ariana DeBose, better known as The Bullet, go unnoticed. Ariana is mostly a dancer throughout the whole musical, yet she carries one of the most important characters of the play. She is the first woman to be killed by the British Army, becoming an omen of death by the name of The Bullet. Later, we see her again in the Stay Alive song as the first bullet fired on the musical. Then we find her shaking hands with John Lawrence, making him the second victim of the show. After that appearance, she comes back to stage to flirt with the 19-year-old Philip Hamilton before he dies. She comes back in Your Obedient Servant, bringing the desk on stage and hands Burr the quill to write the first of several letters that will eventually lead to Alexander's death. And finally, in the final duel, she catches a bullet, which was fired by Burr. As she gets closer to hitting Hamilton, Eliza pops into stage, making the whole scene to stop. She has been called a secret character by many and a favorite by me. Now it's time to speak about the beautiful work of the Schuyler sisters, each of them portraying their part differently as the other. Jasmine Seppes not only plays the role of Peggy Schuyler, but of Maria Reynolds. We can see the difference between the smaller of the three sisters and the seductive woman in Act 2. Her voice is simply sexy and seductive, perfect for the part. We also have the beautiful Renee Elise Goldsberry playing the part of Angelica Schuyler, the big sister. For me, her voice portrayed so much power, but that is just the simplicity of her voice. Her character is the loving and caring older sister who only cares about the happiness of her smaller sisters, and she is willing to give in her own happiness for them to have theirs. And lastly, we can't forget about the talented Philippa Sow, who plays the part of the middle sister and wife to Alexander Hamilton. Her voice is sweet and calm throughout the whole play. She is emotion. She is the calm in all the tribulation. Her songs are all very calming when everything in the play just keeps increasing with power and strength. I must add that her acting is simply spot on. To be able to change emotions within minutes or even seconds is just shocking to the eye. And not only that, but the way she makes the audience feel something every time she pops up to stage, it's amazing. And I say that with complete admiration.
Hamilton is a play that is filled of representation to those rising artists who believe they can't make it far on the Broadway industry.
The cast is not only full of black and white actors, it's a cast full of representation to different artists all around the world.
I said I'm not throwing away my shot. I said I'm not throwing away my shot. And yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, I'm hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot.